we've started to record again. And again, I hope I did justice to the NRCS component of this. And I know that there's a much more depth to it. And I also know that many of you are certainly already certified in the Conservation Desktop for certified planning. And many of you are undergoing trainings through, I believe, an AgLearn approach to fully understand to become certified, because this is a big component of it, the technical end of it. As Albert indicated, they are fully committed. And one thing we learned last time is, we need to be prepared for the level of activity that we think you folks are going to experience. And so the more folks that are certified plan writers, the more apt we're going to be able to service and, take care of the interest that comes forward. And the beauty of CRP, I think, again, is, FSA has always administered this, but it's because of the NRCS and the TSP, including a lot of conservation district staff that do the technical end of it, that really has made this a very successful program that every Farm Bill seems to gain favor with, because again, the job you folks are doing out there. And it's something, again, we can recognize on the landscape. We can all see it out there. So with that, then I'm going to turn it back over to you, Kelly, to go into step 7.
Okay, thanks, Dale. I am going to request control. Just because I have those documents, I'm going to get into. Thank you. We had a couple questions also come up in the chat before I get deep into step 7. So Chassie had asked, when I was talking about the CREP easements, are those the ones that are being managed by the Saginaw Bay Conservancy in perpetuity? And that is correct. And then John added that would include any permanent conservation easement that doesn't allow for the planting of a crop. That's correct too. But when I'm referring to in one of the steps, the one thing I want to make sure our folks know is that all we have layers for, GIS layers available as far as for easements, is the CREP and anything that's at ACEP or former WRP. We have those layers as well. Anything else you're going to have to, as part of those conversations when we're doing land eligibility up front, you're going to have to ask those questions to make sure that the participant does not have a permanent conservation easement placed on the ground. And that would even include if they're already started in like U.S. Fish and Wildlife Partners Program, because that has a lifespan requirement. So there's a whole nother level that FSA folks are aware of that we get into when it talks about there's a cover that's within lifespan requirements too. So I hope that clears up any of those questions, or if there's confusion there. If not, please speak up now. You can either unmute yourself or throw something up in the chat. But I want to make sure that we're clear on that we have a specific layer that's for the CREP easements, and then we also for any kind of NRCS easement as well.
And Kelly, real quick, just to further clarify, it's not just the Saginaw Bay Land Conservancy that could be holding these CREP easements. There are land conservancies all across southern Michigan, Thumb, and potentially even over on the west side too. So keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, everything we have though for the CREP is Saginaw Bay. From that 5,000 acres, that's where we received all our data from. So with that, I'm going to move into step 7. And this is where after NRCS provides us back with the suitability and feasibility worksheet or the status review, we're going to take a look at those. If it's not suitable, we have what we call a CRP 26, and that's the letter stating that it's ineligible and it has different reasons why. If it's suitable, we contact the participant, we gather signatures, we move on to what's called step 9. If it's suitable but needs changes, we've got to contact the participant first, and that's step 8, which I'm going to work on talking about next. Maybe. All right, Dale. So step 8, if the producer agrees to the changes, we're going to have to create a new terrace scenario. And as long as NRCS has provided you with new geospatial data, that should be pretty easy for you to have that in there, snap to, and create that new scenario, upload it into Coles. We would have to reprint a new 2C. We'd print the CRP1, and at that point, and we will be providing to you the MI CREP 3 form. That will not be anything that's generated by any of our softwares. That's going to be something that you're going to have to actually fill out. If the participant is not agreeable to those changes at that point, that's where we're going to issue that CRP 26. Steps 9 through 12. So this is where we turn around and we ensure that they don't exceed their base limitation. So remember, you know, if we've got somebody that's base tight and they're participating in ARC PLC, we've got to make sure that bases have been reduced. If they want a paid for measurement service that includes staking and referencing, we want to do that at that time. This is when we want to begin to obtain the AGI certification with participants with greater than 0 shares. Like I stated, we need to obtain at least one signature from an eligible participant on the offer for the forms, the 2C, the CRP1, and the CREP 3. We also explain to them the CRP appendix, and we also going to provide them with a copy of that appendix. And then this is also at the point where we're going to share with them the information for what John talked about with Sigma, which is their contract payment EFT vendor registration. We're going to have some information, county offices, for you to pass off to those folks. We cannot, in the service center on a USDA computer, we cannot go in and help them sign up. So that is a no-no. We gotta, it's outside our services and in areas that we should be accessing. So that's something where, like John stated, they've got some other folks within the district and other areas that if somebody needs some help with actually going in and creating one of these counts, and that might even be they don't even have an email, which obviously you got to have an email account. They may have to help them with creating some type of a free email account. So this is going to take us forward to step 13, and that's when we're going to send out the CRP 23, and that's the notice of acceptability for an offer. We're going to provide them with a copy of the signed CRP1, the CRP2, the CREP 3, and the appendix. So all those things are going to go in that same packet to the participant. And Dale, if you would click on that, there we go. And at this point, this is when we need to be updating that offer status in Coles to submit for plan. This is going to be important. So we're going to get into tomorrow. There are some practice limitations. Also, you know, if this goes gangbusters like it did when we first started back in 2000, we have a smaller pot of monies right now available. And I know the state of Michigan has some others that they could move around to. But if we have to at any time stop taking offers when they are stamped in the system and what their status is, that matters. So make sure you're keeping up on those statuses timely within Coles for those reasons. And then at this point, this is when we're going to record the date the participant is notified of acceptability into the CRP referral log. And that's when we're going to start to see this turn colors within that log. So step 13, this is where we're going to provide to NRCS once again via those pub folders that you guys have set up on your share drives. We are to provide them with a copy of that letter of acceptability, the CRP 23, the copy of the signed CRP 1, and the CREP 3. Those are important because when they're doing their conservation plans, everybody that's listed on that CRP 1 needs to be listed on that conservation plan. They also have to sign to the conservation plan. We're also going to obtain a copy of a signed CRP 2C. And provide that to them, as well as if there's any new geospatial data and if there's a new track map or anything, we're going to provide those. And once again, if for some reason there is new geodata information that's been provided, you're going to have to do that also in this folder location. And like I stated, this also is in 4CRP. So we've got those exhibits, and Sarah and I had done some training on this. This is actually a national requirement as far as where these have to be replaced. It's every state has the same location set up. Next slide, please. And This is where we're also going to provide NRCS with the documents, and we're going to update that on the referral log as well. So step 14, this is going to be NRCS provides to us. They've gone out, they finished their conservation plan. They're going to provide us with all the supporting documents, the signatures. And this is where you guys may want to coordinate. And I know some county offices do that, and they're really great about that because they're already obtaining all the signatures and stuff. We still have to gain all signatures on the CRP contract and stuff. So you may want to coordinate these efforts when you're gathering signatures. As part of the conservation plan, and what we have to have back is we also have to have the NRCS CPA 052 with their portion completed and all supporting documentation. And Dale, I don't know, I was going to say, I don't know if you want to add to this before we move to the next slide.
Well, a couple of things, Kelly, appreciate it. So with the signatures, just as a reminder, CRP on the NRCS conservation plan does require a conservation district signature. That's by policy. Now, if a specific district puts in writing that they're not interested in reviewing and signing CRP conservation plans, we will accept that. But as a reminder, the conservation district signature is a requirement for CRP 1155s. The NRCS CPA 052 for CRP, which would include CREP, we rely upon the NRCS process that you folks are familiar with. If through that state office review, it's determined that there's need for some consultation, this is where Kelly was going, that is an FSA requirement. And so the NRCS state office, if there's a need for consultation with a CREP offer, our state environmental coordinator is notified, and then we are required to do any necessary consultation before we can move further on a conservation plan. Kelly.
All right. So with that, this is when NRCS records that date. We're going to see it turn up green on the referral log. And Dale, if you'll go ahead and move to the next slide, and that's going to also talk a little bit about that consultation. And you'll see we have that flow chart. This was actually, we took this and we amended it into 2 CRP, so it's at your fingertips and within that policy. So we have to complete all the necessary consultations. We need to attain copies of permits or any other permissions that are necessary. We need to ensure and review the conservation plan to make sure it meets CRP policy, which includes management activities and that those are scheduled appropriately if the practice requires it. We're going to get into that a little deeper tomorrow. We also complete our portion of the 52. We ensure that we've got all the signatures on the CRP1 contract, on the MI CREP 3 and the conservation plan. And at this point, this is when we update the status in COLS to submit to COC. So if you go ahead and go to the next slide. At this point, and as I talked a little bit earlier, this is when it's very important that we have done our due diligence and we have anybody that's receiving any kind of a benefit, whether that's a member of an entity or as an individual shares on the contract, we have their TIN, it matches with IRS, we have their AGI, and that is filed in subsidiary. If it's not, COLS will not let you approve the contract. There are hard stops in the softwares now. So you need to make sure that we have all those things done and we have the right AGI that is filed for the fiscal year that the contract is being approved. So make sure we got that. It's been loaded in the subsidiary file. If all's good, it'll let you do that. And at that point, the county committee or the CED can approve the CRP1. So what happens after we approve the contract? Dale, next slide, please. So we're going to record the contract period on the CRP1. We've got to do that manually, and we're also going to do that on the CREP form. This is where we're also going to enter the approval date and the effective start date from the CRP1 into COLS. This is something county offices we may have to have a little deeper conversation on if you want, because we know with continuous it's a little different. We have those deferment dates that can happen. That's only on newly enrolled acreage, not re-enrolled. Re-enrolled acreage must have a start date of October 1st. Same fiscal year as when, or the same calendar year, I should say, as when the previous acreage was expiring. So you're going to record that CRP1 number also for that. That's going to be generated on the screen, and it's going to tell you what that contract number is in CCMS. That needs to go on the CRP1. It needs to go on the CRP2C and the MI CREP 3. We're going to record our cost share request in CSS and generate our FSA 848s. Remember, we're supposed to do that within 5 business days of contract approval. I know that, there are times where we have heavy workload and that doesn't happen. Just be as prompt as you can and know that we have national reports that come out every so often for addressing those. We notify the participant in writing that we've approved the conservation plan. We provide them with a letter that's specific to that. We provide them with a copy of the approved contracts. We provide them with a copy of the final 2C, the 848s in the conservation plan. And at this point, we will email the MI CREP 3, and here's the email address, to MDARD for contract approval. We will be providing you with, MDARD's going to set up specific naming conventions depending on what it is that FSA is sending them information for CREP on, whether it's a contract approval, revisions, payments. So that's something that we still have to further define, but we will get out to you prior to sign up. And next slide, Dale. So once we approve the contract, if it's eligible for a signing incentive payment with FSA, we're to issue that within 30 days of contract approval. And the reason being is because, we have prompt payment interest that's due. And so we need to try to keep that to a minimum. And MDARD, once they receive and they approve, they're going to issue their enrollment bonuses that are applicable after contract approval. And then at that point, next slide, Dale, is when they will start and they will send the form MI 417 to us. And that's the payment transmittal document. You may have multiple documents as we work through this process. So we're not saying you're going to keep this one and always update the same one every time you pass it back and forth. But we know that participants, for the most part, they're going to come to FSA and ask about what payments were issued when. So we thought we would have this tracking document so that we knew what payments were issued when and the past back that's happened between the two agents, the two government divisions. So they're gonna provide us with that copy. The next one is after they've sent their payments, they're gonna provide it to the respective county office. We're gonna hold on to that. We'll issue a new one and we're gonna complete parts 1, 2, 4A, and 4C. And this is when we do cost share. We're going to enter in the practice, the acres, the cost share that was total cost share approved, what we ended up putting for out of pocket, and also PIP. And you'll notice on here that we're paying 10% PIP. And we're going to get into that tomorrow as far as exactly what the incentives are. When MDARD, when they've issued their 50% cost share, they're going to return this back to us. Go ahead to the next slide. Thanks, Dale. And at this point, we're going to hold off. And this is something we still have to further define. But when we know that the practice has been successfully established per MI Exhibit 6. So remember that we have those establishment status reviews that occur. Once it's been through that establishment status review and it comes back that there's no issues with, the cover comes back in check, we're going to notify MDARD so that way they can issue what's going to be called a maintenance and management payment. So that's also part of the incentive packages we're going to get into a little deeper tomorrow. So with that, are there any questions before I start in on talking about just a few documents that we have in tools?
I'm seeing nothing in the chat, Kelly.
Okay. So I'm going to hit these next 2 slides real quick, and then I'm going to share my desktop. So one, most of you are all familiar with this. This is a tool that we developed, or I should say actually a document, and it prints out basically in the size of a placemat. There's 2 sides to it. One gives you a very 10,000 foot about what each type of CRP sign up is. So as we know, we got several sign up types. They all have different conservation objectives. They're very unique between incentives and everything. So this is meant to have a layout. When somebody comes in the door, you might be having multiple conversations. It may not be just CREP that they sign up for. You know, they may have something that they eligible under grasslands, or it might not be a practice that's eligible under CREP on another portion of their farm, and they need to go into another aspect, maybe continuous, or the farmable wetlands program. So this is meant to help everybody out there have those conversations and provide a little bit of what the information is. This is just very much a 10,000 foot view of side-by-side comparison. And then Dale, if you would go to the next slide, and FSA and NRCS, you may have seen this. NRCS, you have a very stripped down version. This is an internal document only for USDA. This is an appointment workbook that we developed last year to help county office personnel with having meaningful, confident conversations about CRP. Like I said, there's so much to it as far as you're bouncing around between a handbook. You might be going back to Exhibit 11, and then you're jumping up into maybe paragraph 66, and and there's all these different areas as far as what does this mean? What's the what practice is eligible for how many years? What kind of land classification? What are the incentives? So we took and divided that all down, chopped it down into the multiple sign-up types, so you could have that and look at these. Let me with this share my desktop. So this is the front side of that document that I was telling you about, that prints out basically in a placement size format. FSA offices, we actually had purchased back in 2020 or 2021 plastic holders that you could actually place these in and stuff to kind of help, especially given COVID, keep those clean and be able to sanitize them. Like I said, the first side tells you a little bit about what is the Conservation Reserve Program. And then it gets into what is general, what is continuous, what is safe, all these different conservation sign-up types that we do just under one program heading. And you can see this a little better from that slide. This is also just very 10,000 foot, what's the contract length? What are the incentives? What do we pay for cost share? You'll see like for CREP or for Clear 30, it's not called cost share. It's actually a maintenance incentive payment. We do kind of provide down at the bottom what the climate smart is, just the percentages, not what it is by practice, but just so you guys can have those conversations and have this in front of you while you're promoting CRP. And then this is that workbook that I was talking about, and that does also include tabs with that information. Just because it's all here, we thought putting it in this format made it a whole lot easier for you guys to have, because you could just go from tab to tab to tab for your information instead of, oh, there's this sheet, that sheet, and all this other. So it's meant, especially during COVID, while we've all been teleworking and stuff, so you can have some information at your fingertips while you're having these conversations as well. One thing we did also create for you folks was a page that was an appointment preparation sheet to kind of prepare you while you're having that conversation or what you might need for the participant. We have a lot of brand new staff out there. We also have staff in service centers that they have CRP, but they don't do it that often. So you're not going to be that proficient in it when you're not doing it all the time. And then you're having to stop and go, what do I need to gather? So this was meant to kind of help you up front, gather your information and know some of the information details you need to have prior to your appointment. Once again, we had these spreadsheets here where you can sit there and look at the practice. Continuous 57. So we have what we call just regular continuous CRP. We have SAFE. We also have what we call HELI, the highly erodible land, farmable wetlands practice. There's an awful lot there under that sign up alone. And then you have, so what's the contract period? What are the incentives? What's the practice? And then we get over here, the applicability on the landscape. And this is where we get into, we talk a little bit about, if it is eligible for CCRP as a CP1, it's got to be within a wellhead protection area, and that's determined by Terra. Also, heli, that has to have an EI, wind or water, that's equal to 20 or greater based on the 3 predominant soils. You'll also see some of these are hyperlinked, and we do have a sheet in here a little bit. Some folks, maybe you're having a little hard time determining when you're looking at maps and having these conversations about what these practices are. So we just gave you some visuals to help with that aid as well.
So Kelly, there is a question in the chat. I apologize, from Desiree. She's indicating, did you say that NRCS will be provided this Excel workbook tool for practices as well?
Yes, and they have been. Brian had asked last year when he saw this, we give a stripped down version to NRCS. So they do have that, Chastity. So for CREP, thanks, Dale. So for CREP, we do have 2 different tabs because the incentives are going to be offered different for new enrollment versus re-enrollment. As well as you're going to see here, and we're going to get into further tomorrow, there's actually a special enrollment bonus for the Western Lake Erie portion. So just wanted to kind of get into this a little bit in the nitty gritty, let you know we've got some stuff to help you have those conversations as you're sorting through. The nice thing about this too is if you need to, you want to do a side-by-side comparison of a couple practices while you're having some conversations, you can just filter to those practices and you have that information at your fingertips fairly quickly as well. So with that, let me get this. Back up and I will stop sharing.
Okay, and Kelly, you can see the next slide.
I can.
All right, thanks, Kelly. Yeah, and that really is an innovative tool. As Kelly indicated, there's a lot there, but we know that some of our staff have found that to be very helpful. As we mentioned, CRP from when it started back in 1985 is almost unrecognizable. I mean, it's still in its premise, taking land out of production and putting it in a conservation cover, but it's evolved well beyond that, and so that is a cool tool that hopefully you folks find helpful. As Kelly indicated, NRCS, you folks have a watered down version, so to speak. And so again, thanks, Kelly, for actually developing that. I know that's taken a lot of work. So we've been talking about other conservation program opportunities. Again, most of you folks are aware of these acronyms, but again, since we're all conservationists, at the end of the day, if we have somebody that is interested in conservation, but they do not qualify for CREP, or maybe, the enhancements, the enhanced requirements just don't suit their objective, right? So at the end of the day, we want to capture as much conservation as we can. And as John indicated, when we talk CREP, we may be able to look at other programs that will address other resource concerns, some that they may verbalize and some that they may not even recognize, but you folks can point out to them that, hey, have you thought about this? So we've listed some of those. This is not all inclusive, but we've referenced EQIP. Of course, ACEP, the easement program that NRCS administers. CSP is out there. Of course, again, the MEEP technicians themselves are a great resource, but there is some cost share that MEEP technicians are able to provide. Our partners at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, they have a program called Partners for Wildlife. It's a great program, and it's a program that actually can be used to enhance some CRP once it's enrolled, assuming that the conservation plan is amended to incorporate. But we also find that sometimes there's folks that come in and their land just does not have the qualifying characteristics that Kelly covered to make it eligible for CREP or even for CRP. And so that's where, if you folks aren't familiar with that program, please get familiar with it. If you're not familiar with those biologists that administer that program, get to know those folks, particularly once we can get reacquainted and out in the field. There's so many resources available. And as we mentioned, we've not even covered all of the programs that are available. We're hoping in a future session maybe to focus in some of these, depending on what you folks are running into out there. And then, again, I think one of the best things that NRCS offers is technical assistance, right? So there's some folks that come in and we may scare them away with all these acronyms, or maybe the formalities of some of the actual program requirements, the contracts, the maintenance, the management. And maybe really all they're after is the knowledge of how they can install some of these types of practices on their own. And to me, that's the value of that technical assistance that NRCS and many of you are able to provide if the programs really don't meet their needs. So again, we'll keep repeating this, but when we're out there and when we're talking with these folks, we want to market all of the opportunities available and in the end, meet their objectives. And we believe you'll find, and producers will find, because of the enhanced financials of CREP, and once we introduce and go into more detail tomorrow on the actual CREP practices, if somebody's willing to do the enhanced practices, accept the enhanced financials, accept the enhanced longer term contract, CREP, you'll find, pays the most, and it's by design. But if somebody doesn't want those enhancements, then again, we might be able to fall back on a continuous CRP or general or grassland, all those other opportunities Kelly covered in that matrix, or certainly under one of the other acronyms that we have on the screen. So again, let's really market and promote conservation to its full extent. So we've thrown a lot at you folks, we realize that, but hopefully you have a better sense after what we've covered today of the who, what, when, where, why of the Michigan CREP. We talked a bit about, the marketing and promotion and getting the word out. We covered what was done to date. And then again, we recognize you folks are going to get very creative and coordinate at the service center level to take that to the next level. And when we talk to partners, that are familiar with CRP, they understand the roles of the different agencies. They always express their appreciativeness of all the hard work that you folks do. And so the process that Kelly described, for those of you that might be new, it seems arduous, but it's something that our folks do on a daily basis. They're trained to do it. It's part of the process. It ensures that we stay within the policy and the program requirements. But we always assure the partners that, look, if you have a basic understanding of the program and you send somebody into one of the local USDA service centers, we can assure you that the USDA staff and the partners will walk them through the process to determine eligibility and, to get them to contract if that's what they desire. And again, that's our commitment to all of the technicians that are listening out there. As you bring people in, we're hoping you have a better idea of kind of who's eligible, what's eligible to a degree. As Kelly indicated, that's ultimately FSA's final determination. But we will hopefully glean a lot of conservation through this effort and all the other efforts that we have available to us. So, and then Kelly just demonstrated some available tools that we think will assist in, better understanding the various components and the various programs that are available. And again, as we've hit upon, the various conservation opportunities that exist. So tomorrow we pick up 1 to 3 again, and tomorrow we're going to go into depth on the specific CREP practices, the enhancement requirements for those practices, and as Kelly indicated, get into the incentives, right, the financials. And this is the other portion, that you folks understand is very important to a person that expressed interest. They're trying to, make a living out there. Much of the ground we're looking at is probably marginal. It's not some of their best ground. It doesn't mean that they can't enroll some of their better ground if they think that meets their objective and financially makes sense to them. We're going to get into a lot more detail on that. So, today again was just to get us through the processes and some of the terms and the acronyms and the forms that you folks are going to be seeing. So with that, we still have a little bit of time yet in today's session. Are there any questions that you wanted to ask that you haven't to date, you know, on any topic that we're not covering tomorrow, you know, now's the time to ask those. Either put them in the chat, please, or, you know, certainly speak up through your mic if you would prefer. We'll give folks a few more minutes to either enter questions that you might have in the chat, or again, ask those direct as we're waiting a few more minutes. Again, thanks for your participation today. Always a few technical glitches with these types of things. We were hoping that we would have been able to meet face to face, and we really attempted to try to make that happen, but we're just not quite to that point. Based on the number of folks that we knew would be participating today. But in the future, we definitely want to get out there and get better acquainted. So Mike Parker is asking, can you please share the CRP at a glance document? And yeah, Kelly's willing to distribute that.
As soon as we know sign up date and we have some clearance on some stuff, so we'll have it prior to April, the start of sign up in April.
All right, thanks, Kelly. Yeah, so Mike, we want that, you know, to be out to the partners. We think it's a great tool for all of us. And then there's a question, when will the recording be available? I believe the first half has already been inserted into the chat, and I think when we conclude, the other will appear. So those will be part of the invite along with the attachments or the handouts that we covered today. You can confirm that, Kelly?
Yes, because I do see the recording already in the chat for the first segment.
Okay, thank
so you. Just for folks to know, like, we have our CREP amendment that's going through the approval clearance. Until that's formally approved, we do have the signed CREP agreement. That's when we can actually say for sure when sign up's gonna start. Also, when we can provide you with the tools. So those tools will be released as soon as we have that opportunity or that availability and approval.
So good reminders, Kelly. So question out of Adrian, what about producers who voluntarily maintain filter strips without rental payments after a past expiration? Are they eligible to enroll with an enhancement? I will get asked that question. So part of the needs and feasibility is if NRCS or one of the TSPs, the technicians go out and a practice already exists that's you know, addressing the resource concern, that land is not eligible to be offered. Now, we'll talk beyond CREP. There are other practices available. You know, I think of prairie strips or pollinator habitat. If somebody is willing to offer that acreage, again, if it meets those eligibilities that Kelly referenced, then you know, they could possibly offer it under a different practice, which at that point they would have to bring it up to that standard and spec, but we would provide the cost share and incentives to do that. So yes, we're going to run into that quite a bit, and we may have to utilize a different practice if it meets the other eligibility. So it's a good question. There is a question, will the recordings also be posted on SharePoint? So Kelly, do we typically put those on SharePoint as well as the invite?
Yes, I was just responding to that. That the other thing is we have to upload those to the internet because of their size and create a link. I mean, that's kind of a formality that we have in the state office, but yes.
Okay. And to Aaron's question and Adrian, there's a couple links already. So did that address your question, concern? You know, again, we understand that can be a little bit difficult, but I think we have tools now that we can address it and capture some of the interest there. So question out of Mason. You talked about land eligibility and the GIS conservation layers. You mentioned the LiDAR layer. What is it? So I guess, John, that was part of the phosphorus tool that you referenced. Maybe you could explain LiDAR?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So the tool is called ACPF. Again, that stands for Agricultural Conservation Planning Framework, and it's a several GIS layers that are brought together into one tool that's used to identify high-risk fields and fields ideally suited for various conservation practices. So we are working with our friends in Eagle, as well as some funding that's come out of the Herb Family Foundation to essentially build out the data using this tool in the Western Lake Erie Basin. We've got, I believe, 13 subwatersheds that it's been developed for so far, and we're hoping over time to develop that further. We are in the process of getting that data in the hands of folks at the field office level, and we're still kind of working through that right now. So it's not available statewide at this point. It's not even available in the entirety of the Western Lake Erie Basin. It is a bit of a timely process to do some of the data processing that needs to occur in order to run that model, that tool. So hopefully that looks like you say thank you. A little bit of information there. We will be hopefully having some training on that in the near future once we get a few more pieces pulled together.
Thanks, John. Yeah, that LiDAR technology is really cool. And again, it's another aspect of how exciting this rollout is. We have so many tools available to us now that we didn't in the past sign up. And again, we think back to the success we had under the original CREP. All of the enhancements and these technologies are just going to assist us even further. So again, another minute or so for folks to either ask questions direct or put those in the chat. And again, just thanks for your patience today and your patience throughout the last year or two as we've been talking about this. It's exciting to finally be this close. And as we're waiting here, as Kelly indicated, again, some other things that she's been working on, Kim Martin has been very helpful, is making sure that once we do announce the sign up, that the software is fully, supports this effort. Kelly has our policy being reviewed. Kim is helping with that. All these things, are lining up, which gave us the comfort to have this first session. And then again, we pick up tomorrow at 1 o'clock to get more in depth on the specific CREP practices and then the financial incentives that go along with those.
FSA, so, you're gonna have all you need prior to sign up, which very rarely happens. So just know that we have been pushing very hard and working very hard behind the scenes to make sure that we're going to have everything you need, the tools, the policy, everything. So when sign up starts, you can roll.
Good point, Kelly. Kelly and I, John, Brian, all of our NRC, we all started in the field. We understand, the importance of being as prepared as you can be. Nothing's more annoying than, training after a sign up begins. It just adds another layer of unnecessary confusion. So yeah, that was one of the components that as a group we collaborated on, and we said, look, out of respect for the field, we are not going to allow this to get out in front of our folks. We want to have them as prepared as we can prior to a sign up. And so again, that's out of respect for you folks and realizing how hard it is to juggle everything else you're responsible for out there for sure. So again, Kelly, John, I'm not seeing anything else in the chat. We're within 10 minutes of our time. So unless there's something else pressing, certainly tomorrow we'll be able to pick up if there's questions that come to you tonight, tomorrow. We'll do a kind of a recap before we start in tomorrow's session. So again, you'll have another opportunity for something that you might think of, or maybe you're just tired of this at this point, and that's fine too. We'll pick up tomorrow. So with that, I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you folks once again, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And again, hopefully you can join us tomorrow. Take care, folks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Dale. Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.